Everyone at Lincoln Elementary knew Mr. Thompson as the patient's crossing guard. 75 years old, always punctual, waving at every child who passed through his intersection. But when dangerous traffic conditions began causing serious accidents, the humble school guard transformed into someone the Department of Transportation never expected, revealing 36 years of experience designing the very traffic systems that were now failing. Robert James Thompson was 75 years old, with silver hair combed neatly beneath his bright orange safety vest and kind gray eyes that tracked vehicle movements with the systematic attention of someone who understood that traffic engineering was the invisible science keeping modern transportation functioning safely. His weathered hands gripped his stop sign with steady authority, and his voice carried the calm confidence of someone who had spent decades managing complex systems where timing and precision could save lives. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we continue this powerful tale of hidden expertise and life-saving vigilance, tell me in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories about quiet protectors deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button. The intersection of Maple Street and 3rd Avenue in suburban Denver was one of the busiest pedestrian crossings in the school district, where over 300 Lincoln Elementary students crossed twice daily during arrival and dismissal periods. The crossing was controlled by standard traffic signals, marked crosswalks, and school-zone speed limits that were supposed to provide adequate protection for children navigating through morning and afternoon traffic. Robert had volunteered as crossing guard for 12 years, arriving at 7:30 a.m. and 2:45 p.m. to provide additional safety oversight during the periods when children were most vulnerable to traffic accidents. His position required patience, alertness, and the ability to manage interactions between hurried drivers and young pedestrians who didn't always understand the dangers of urban traffic. "Good morning, Sarah. Remember to wait for my signal before you cross, and keep watching for cars even when you have the right of way." "Morning, Mr. Thompson. My mom said to thank you for helping her when she was carrying all those grocery bags yesterday." These daily conversations represented more than routine safety enforcement. They were educational opportunities that taught children to think critically about traffic safety while building community connections that made the school zone feel like an extended neighborhood where everyone looked out for each other. The school administration and parent community appreciated Robert's dedication and expertise. His suggestions about pedestrian safety had led to improved crosswalk markings. His observations about traffic flow patterns had informed requests for additional signage, and his calm management of intersection activities had prevented numerous potential accidents over the years. What none of them realized was that Robert Thompson had spent 36 years designing traffic safety systems with expertise that extended far beyond school crossing management. Robert lived alone in a comfortable house 6 blocks from the school, a well-maintained 2-story structure that reflected the organized mindset of someone who understood that attention to detail in personal life supported effectiveness and professional responsibilities. The main living areas were furnished practically but comfortably, reflecting the tastes of someone who appreciated function over style. But the home office revealed technical capabilities that exceeded crossing guard requirements. The walls displayed engineering diagrams and project documentation spanning 3 decades of transportation planning, intersection designs that had improved traffic flow in major metropolitan areas, pedestrian safety systems that had reduced accident rates in school zones throughout the region, and traffic signal coordination plans that had optimized urban transportation networks for both efficiency and safety. Filing cabinets contained project documentation for transportation improvements that had affected millions of commuters. And in a secure drawer that seemed unnecessary for volunteer crossing guard work were credentials that would have transformed how Denver's transportation community viewed their local school safety volunteer: a master's degree in transportation engineering from the University of Colorado, professional engineer license with specialization in traffic safety systems, and consulting agreements with the Colorado Department of Transportation that had shaped how the state approached pedestrian protection in urban environments. Robert James Thompson, P.E., one of Colorado's leading experts in traffic safety engineering and pedestrian protection systems. His career had focused on designing intersections, crosswalks, and traffic control systems that balanced efficient vehicle movement with pedestrian safety, developing signal timing that accommodated both rush hour traffic and school zone protection requirements. The work had taken Robert from suburban intersection improvements that served local communities to major highway projects that affected regional transportation networks. His designs had been implemented throughout the Rocky Mountain region, establishing safety standards that had prevented thousands of traffic accidents while maintaining transportation efficiency that supported economic development. Retirement in 2011 was voluntary rather than mandatory. Robert had accumulated enough years in transportation engineering to retire with full pension while still young enough to pursue community service that didn't involve the corporate pressures and bureaucratic constraints that had sometimes compromised optimal engineering solutions. The crossing guard position wasn't about staying busy during retirement. It was about applying traffic safety. But 36 years of traffic engineering expertise doesn't disappear because someone changes from professional design to volunteer safety work. And Robert's trained eye continued monitoring traffic patterns and infrastructure conditions that could affect pedestrian safety in ways that standard traffic engineering assessments might miss. Wednesday, October 25th, started like every other school morning. Robert arrived at his intersection at 7:25 a.m., reviewed weather conditions that would affect visibility and road traction, and prepared for another morning of helping children navigate safely through the controlled chaos of school arrival traffic. The morning routine proceeded normally until 8:15 a.m., when Robert observed something that triggered 36 years of traffic safety analysis experience. A delivery truck making a right turn had blocked the crosswalk for nearly 30 seconds while maneuvering around a parked car, forcing pedestrians to walk around the vehicle into active traffic lanes. The incident revealed that recent parking regulation changes had created sightline obstructions and turning radius problems that violated fundamental traffic engineering principles. Robert had designed thousands of similar intersections, and he recognized immediately that the current configuration created hazardous conditions that would inevitably result in serious accidents if the underlying engineering problems weren't addressed. But his observations over the following week confirmed that the delivery truck incident was part of a larger pattern of infrastructure failures that were making the intersection increasingly dangerous despite compliance with current traffic regulations. The problem stemmed from recent city planning decisions that had prioritized parking availability over pedestrian safety, creating conditions that experienced traffic engineers would have identified as unacceptable risks to school zone protection. Commercial vehicle access conflicts with crosswalk timing, sightline obstructions that prevented drivers from seeing children, and signal phasing that didn't provide adequate crossing time for elementary school students. Robert documented his observations using analytical techniques learned during decades of traffic safety investigation. But his position as volunteer crossing guard provided no official authority to influence transportation planning decisions that were creating hazardous conditions for the children he was responsible for protecting. On Friday, October 27th, his concerns became reality. At 2:55 p.m. during afternoon dismissal, a delivery truck making the same problematic right turn that Robert had been documenting struck 8-year-old Michael Chen as the boy attempted to cross in the marked crosswalk with the appropriate pedestrian signal. Michael survived with serious injuries, but the accident revealed that the intersection's current design created exactly the kind of pedestrian vehicle conflicts that traffic engineering principles were designed to prevent. Robert Thompson faced a choice that would define his impact on transportation safety. He could file informal suggestions through volunteer channels, hope that city transportation planners would eventually identify similar problems through their own analysis, and risk additional accidents while bureaucratic processes slowly address infrastructure deficiencies. Or he could use 36 years of expertise in traffic safety engineering to protect school zone pedestrians the way he'd been trained to do when similar problems emerged during his professional career. Robert made his decision in approximately 10 seconds. He called the Colorado Department of Transportation through professional networks that retained his engineering credentials, identified himself by licenses that carried immediate authority among traffic safety officials, and requested emergency assessment of intersection conditions that violated established pedestrian protection standards. CDOT Traffic Safety Division, this is Robert Thompson, PE, requesting immediate engineering review of the Maple and 3rd intersection adjacent to Lincoln Elementary School. Recent infrastructure changes have created pedestrian safety conditions that are inconsistent with school zone protection requirements. Mr. Thompson, this is Engineer Patricia Rodriguez. We have the accident report from yesterday's incident. Can you provide specific technical analysis of the intersection deficiencies? Robert's voice carried the clinical precision that had characterized thousands of similar engineering consultations during his professional career. Engineer Rodriguez, I'm documenting sightline obstructions, turning radius conflicts, and signal phasing problems that create systematic pedestrian vehicle conflict points. The current configuration violates MUTCD standards for school zone intersection design. Sir, the intersection was recently updated according to current city planning guidelines. Are you suggesting that approved infrastructure changes are creating safety hazards? Engineer Rodriguez, I'm providing field observation data that indicates the recent changes have created conditions that experienced traffic engineers would have identified as unacceptable risks to pedestrian safety, particularly for elementary school students. Within 48 hours, CDOT traffic engineers were conducting detailed safety assessment that confirmed Robert's analysis. The redesign had indeed created multiple safety violations that required immediate correction to prevent additional pedestrian accidents.
Mr. Thompson, how did you identify the engineering deficiencies so quickly when our initial planning review didn't detect these problems? Engineer Rodriguez asked during the safety assessment coordination. Robert looked around the intersection, where temporary safety measures were being implemented while permanent engineering solutions were developed. Engineer Rodriguez, I've spent 36 years designing traffic systems with exactly these pedestrian protection requirements. The problems became obvious once you understood how the infrastructure changes affected pedestrian vehicle interaction patterns. The engineering corrections that Robert's analysis had initiated were implemented within 3 weeks, establishing intersection safety improvements that eliminated the conditions that had caused Michael Chen's accident, while creating a model for school zone protection that was adopted throughout the Denver metropolitan area. The story remained largely within transportation engineering publications, protecting both operational credibility and Robert's privacy, while ensuring that school zone safety protocols incorporated lessons learned from field observation techniques that could complement standard traffic engineering assessments. Robert returned to his crossing guard duties, protecting children with the same patient vigilance that had characterized his pre-emergency work. But something had changed in his relationship with the transportation community, and his understanding of how his expertise could continue serving pedestrian safety. Mr. Thompson, thank you for getting that intersection fixed, said Mrs. Chen when Michael returned to school after his recovery. The engineers said you were the one who identified the problems that caused the accident. Robert looked across the intersection where improved engineering had restored safety conditions that protected children during their daily school commutes. Mrs. Chen, I've been designing safe intersections for most of my career. Now I get to make sure they actually work the way they're supposed to, one crossing at a time. Were you really a traffic engineer? Robert smiled, adjusting his bright orange crossing guard vest that covered professional credentials he'd hoped never to need again. I've spent my career making sure people can travel safely through intersections like this one. Whether I'm designing them or standing in them, the mission stays the same, keeping pedestrians safe. Robert Thompson continued his crossing guard volunteer work until he was 81, serving as informal traffic safety consultant for the school district, while maintaining the daily protection that kept Lincoln Elementary students safe during their commutes. Because he'd learned that the most effective safety engineering often required expertise that exceeded standard planning procedures, observation skills that continued regardless of official titles, and traffic knowledge that served both individual pedestrians and community safety with equal dedication to keeping people protected,